Okay, welcome to lecture 8.5. Okay, here I'm just going to explain the homework that I've given you. Now, what I have done is I've posted a Dropbox. Assignment 6. I hope that's the right number. Looks something like this. Okay. And it's just 4 pages. 1, 2, 5. No, 6. 6 pages of my handwritten notes. And what I've done is I've written a proof, except I erased big chunks of it. And so I want you to fill in the proof. Now, if you look at Lemma 1 and read it carefully, Lemma 2 is very similar. You should be able to, I think, fill in the gaps, okay? But the key is you got to read Lemma 1 very carefully. Here is the background from that homework assignment. When Jeff, Milo, and I came with our paper, okay, Alex and Tyler mentioned it on Marginal Revolution, then Drudge Report mentioned it, and then some other blogs realize, especially those on the left, they realize, we have to attack this. We've got to show what's wrong. Okay, maybe it's right. They didn't consider that, but they've got to show what's wrong. And so a guy at a blog called Language Log, which is a group of linguists, and this group, I don't think they really know statistics, and they wanted to pose as experts, like they really understood these are kind of complex statistical matters or econometric matters. I don't think they understood it, but they had to act like they understood it, and that grows close to Milo. These right-wing people are really not very smart, and so they had to post a criticism of it. Now, what happened was the early version of our paper, so we did a method that you've seen, but then in an appendix, we put an easier to understand version that we called it that gives back of the envelope estimates. And to do these things, all we did, I can't even remember exactly what all we did, but I think we just substituted all the think tanks. They called them either right of center or left of center. And all we did is we looked at the average ADA score of the people citing it, and then if that was above 50, right of center, if below, left of center. And then we compared how members of Congress cited with a proportion of left-wing versus right-wing think tanks, and then did the same thing for the media, something like that. And it was a method that if all you had was 8th grade math, you could understand it. And he said, look, here's we do this method, here's the answers that it gives, and it was kind of the back of the envelope estimates and media bias. It was pretty close to what we actually got for our maximum likelihood method. And so this one guy named, I think it's Jeffrey Nunberg, I think that's it. So he wrote this critique, and by the way, you can see it if you just Google Gross-Close language. I just looked at it. He called this Nach einmal, Cheinmal. It's a German word. And earlier I think I told you about, maybe it's in class I said that about Dave Barry's How to Win an Argument. Absolutely losing. Say, well, that sounds like something I might have said. That's what I should have said. Nach einmal. That sounds like something Hitler would have said. But regardless, he wrote this critique, and he didn't even mention our real method. All he did was critique the back of the envelope method, and then I can't remember if it was me. I think I wrote most of it. Maybe Jeff wrote. I think I wrote the main thing. We wrote a reply, and it said some things like, you know, it only took, there are 13 sections in the paper. 12 of them can be understood with as long as you have at least an eighth grade level of math. There's only one of those sections that requires more than eighth grade level of math, and it looks like Jeffrey Nunberg only read those 12. So it's a little, it's a little petty, a little catty. But I think he deserved it. This guy was dishonest. He wrote something that was not right, not correct of our actual method, only correct of the back of the envelope method, and didn't say it. I think he didn't quite understand that. But even if he didn't understand it, it's still dishonest because he was given the pretense like he was an expert in these statistical methods. And so we wrote a reply, and I think they published it. I think it's on their website. So if you look up Roscoe's language law, you can see my reply. I encourage you to do that. Actually, you'll get a little more intuition about our paper. And by the way, that was an early version of the paper. We realized, we don't want to have to keep on dealing with these criticisms from people who don't understand the math, and so we eliminated that appendix, that back of the envelope method. We said, let's only deal with people who actually can know some calculus and actually know some real statistical methods. So that version has changed. That appendix is gone. But then another person on language logs, in my view, they were kind of humiliated that they look really dishonest and a little stupid too, or not trained in statistical methods. So this one guy, and now I'm not going to get his name right at all. It's another guy on language log, and he wrote something saying that he thinks that our method would give different answers if our data on ideologies of members of Congress had been centered at 0. So ADA scores go from 0 to 100. Now we use adjusted ADA scores, so it's really more like there's a few, I think went from -10 to like positive 112 or something. So it's close to 0 to 100, but not quite. But regardless, it was not centered at 0. It's centered at something like 50. And he gave an argument why it would be different if we had just demeaned these things. And that's stupid. I think any person who's gone through first year economics, but first year PhD level econometrics, realize that's not going to work. So, but then worse, he said something about like, I even wrote it down. Since as far as I know, the data isn't available, an alternative is to look at what happened in artificial life. So what that guy wrote that, and it turns out he had actually been emailing us, asking us for the data. And we wrote back saying, like, we shouldn't do this because you guys were so dishonest, but we will do this to any scholar. If you give us an address to send the data, we will send you a disk with the data. And I think we sent it, or they didn't even give us an address. Regardless, it's in this document that's attached to your email. You can read this document, what he wrote, and we also have our emails where we say, look, if you want the data, we'll send it to you. Despite that, he wrote that, tried to look like we weren't giving out the data. So, yeah, it was not put on a website, but the reason is for this reason. We thought, okay, there's people who are going to just attack our paper just because they want to attack it. And we want a record of all the people who have asked for the data, but then curiously decided not to do anything with it. And you'd say, okay, look, there are people that really would have ideological reasons to attack our paper, but then curiously didn't. We wanted to say, like, look, so we wanted to have a record of people who actually got the data. So anyway, I've given it to probably a couple dozen people, and but I haven't posted on a website, at least not yet. Anyway, the proof, what you have to do on your homework is give a proof that what this guy is saying is wrong. Okay, prove that it would not change anything. So if you demeaned the ADA score, so you subtract all the mean from them, and then just redo the exact same analysis and estimate the new C sub m's, that all it would do, so if all it would do is subtract the mean ADA score from all those CMs. So the result of our paper, the average ADA score was about a 50. The average media outlet of the 20 we looked at was something like a 60. So if you demean the ADA scores for all the congressional data, subtract 50 from them, all that's going to do is make the mean, it's going to take all the old CMs, subtract 50 from it. That's going to be the new C sub M. So that's all it's going to do. You're going to prove that, okay? So I've posted on Dropbox this assignment. Download it, and then I encourage you just handwrite it. So handwrite in the space where I did. Now, do a few versions where you do a rough draft handwriting. You're probably not going to get it exactly right on the first try, but the key is read very carefully that Lemma 1, and then you should be able to do Lemma 2 on your own. Okay, so that's your homework, and if you feel motivated, read the back and forth from us. It's kind of like gossip, but maybe it's interesting, and maybe it might give you a little more intuition what's going on in this paper. Okay, so that is all the media bias. But this is not the end of section 8, because what I'm going to do is for the next session, I want you to read the the Palfrey and McKelvey paper. And that is a little bit hard to digest. There's some pretty tough math in it. What I want to do is show you give a quick lecture to show why it's not as hard as it looks, okay? And I'm going to go through some examples and say, look, if you can understand this, once you can do that, then it's going to be a little easier to understand McKelvey-Palfrey, okay? So that's coming up. So my little pre-introduction to their paper will be in the next video lecture. Wait, and I can't remember. This is 8.4, so that will be 8.5. See you there.